Hello. You know, it's a great feeling when you have an idea or an opinion, whether you formulated that on your own or you just sort of piece together with the help of other people. And when that idea or opinion is expressed or reiterated by someone who's either smarter than you, more credible than you, or more famous than you are, it's a really great feeling because it kind of um, it sort of validates your viewpoint and you're just like, damn, I knew I was right to believe in that. And especially when especially when you were kind of doubting that idea or doubting yourself, it's a great feeling. And this idea that I'm talking about today is the phrase, treat others how you want to be treated. You know, growing up, I always heard that phrase, treat others how you want to be treated. But over time and eventually, I really thought it was a stupid idea because simply on the basis that you are different from other people, the way they want to be treated is different than how you want to be treated. And it makes me happy because Jordan B. Peterson, a famous Canadian psychology professor who you might have heard of, held this same, idea. He expressed that it's not the best approach to treat people how you want to be treated because of that. You're not the same as other people. An example of that might be, well, let's say you got two kids, right? They're both really quiet, but one is really awkward and shy and is reluctant to make friends, while the other one is simply doesn't want to make friends. You know, they're very unapproachable, they're very unlikable, and they don't want to make friends. And let's say there's one kid who's really friendly, and in his mind he thinks, well, I know what it feels like to be, to have no friends, because I used to be a shy and awkward person. Let me approach them and become their friends. You know, they might be shy and awkward. He approaches them, and then the first kid who's really shy and awkward he talks to, and makes conversation with them, and he repeatedly makes efforts to become that person's friend. And that kid who's shy and awkward, at first he was very reluctant, but eventually he opens up and becomes that person's friend. As from the social kid's perspective, he's like, everyone wants to have friends, and this guy was just struggling to make a friend. Now he takes the same approach with the antisocial, unapproachable kid, and then what happens is, rather than becoming this person's friend, he just really agitates him. And then the antisocial kid might be like, hey, could you please leave me alone? I don't want to be bothered. But then the social kid keeps making efforts like, no, but you don't have any friends. You should want friends. I want to be your friend. And he keeps making efforts to be his friend. But then the antisocial kid's like, seriously, back off. I don't want to be your friend. And then, the social kid at that point either has to make the realization that treating that person in the way that he would want to be treated is not going to work, or continue persisting and face the possible repercussions of that. And let's say in this scenario that the kid keeps persisting and the antisocial kid ends up just like kind of wailing out on him, just either, curses him out, gets really loud with him, or just straight up ends up, punching him or some shit. And I'm not gonna get into the details of that, the psychology of the kid or whatever, but let's say like for that example, right? That approach about treating people how you want to be treated, in one way, it was, it worked out. But in the other, case with the antisocial kid, it did not work out. And yeah, so like, it's just kind of it's difficult to have that approach in any and all situations. So, and that's, like, and another thing about that, treating others how you want to be treated is that it can be based on, social norms or cultural norms. And whether that works or not is, dependent on each and every person for sure. Because, there's sometimes where these differences are understandable. And in that situation, people might side with the social kid because he's known to be very friendly, very social, and he's very liked in that social or cultural setting. So in that situation, the antisocial kid might be seen as doing something wrong, when in actuality, the social kid played a part in that, conflict too, because you can criticize the antisocial kid for being socialized poorly, but at the end of the day, the social kid was the one that kind of triggered or instigated that, conflict. And yeah, like, it's understandable from the social kid's perspective, but it might not be so understandable from the antisocial kid's perspective. And that's why he might have been seen as being doing something wrong, or, just might be looked down upon. Whether that's right or not, I would say is up to you guys. I for sure feel like it's for sure not proper, because in that scenario, if one person, if unless both people agree to be friends like that, then you're forcing the antisocial kid. And if the antisocial kid warns you, it is what it is. Another problem with this treat others how you want to be treated approach is that it might cause difficulties in that way and misunderstandings in that way, but it might also lead that individual to justify their own actions. What I mean by that is that, so let's go back to that social kid aspect. Let's say when the social kid, ends up getting like, freaked out on by the freaking antisocial kid, he ends up being like, damn, man, all I did was try to be his friend, this and that. And it starts, crying and starts playing the victim or whatever. He's just like, I didn't deserve that. I shouldn't, I was just trying to be his friend. If anything, he's the one that's weird or whatever. And it's just like, while there's some truth in what you're saying, you did, annoy and pester that antisocial kid. And whether or not his reaction was necessarily justified, you cannot deflect blame. But the thing is, not everyone necessarily agrees like that. And especially if you're a kid, you're not going to think like that. But you might carry that mentality when you're older. And then, in cases or scenarios where you're interacting with other people and you have responsibility to claim for your own actions, you might not, because of that mentality of, I treated this person how I would want to be treated, so I'm justified in what I was doing. An example of that is like, if let's say you're in a soccer team, right? Social kid grows up to be in a soccer team, and he learned at a young age that people should communicate problems or concerns they have when in that team setting. So when he's in that team setting, he tells all the other kids, hey, you're really lazy, or you don't practice enough, or like you don't have any stamina, that's why you mess up all your shots, or you mess up your shots a lot, and that kid just goes off and tells all his problems. And then the kids start like looking at him like, what the fuck this dude. Like, well, who is he to tell me off like that, or to tell, criticize me or whatever. And then yeah, and they end up just not liking him, or like the team, or like those players might like just ignore that person's feedback completely, or they might just go behind his back and tell the coach that I don't like this dude. And then that social kid will be like, wait a minute, but if I was doing bad, I would want someone to tell me straight up that I'm doing bad. And then it's just like, yeah, but not everyone is like you. And then that's where it comes back around. It's like, not everyone's like you. People prefer to be told these things in a very courteous manner, but you're just sort of telling people off and telling them that they're garbage at the game, or they're lacking in this. And for the social perspective, you're just like, but that's how I would want people to tell me. And then, yeah, it goes back to that point, but not everybody is like you. So it then leads to this, to the question, well, if that phrase is wrong, then what should it be, right? I think the way the phrase should be, changed, or the way it should be thought of as, isn't treat others the way you would want to be treated, but treat others the way you wanted to be treated if you were that person, or if you were in that person's circumstances, or if you had that person's personality. You know what I mean? Actually think about it from that person's perspective, not yourself, but that person. So back to the social kid. So the social kid realizes, okay, I messed up. I was treating this person the way I would want to be treated, but I'm not actually thinking about how they would want to be treated. So let's say, let's bring back the antisocial kid in this fucking equation. He fucking realizes that the antisocial kid does not like, being yelled at or told off in that way. So then maybe he's just like, okay, maybe the antisocial kid, since he wants to, avoid these very intense, confrontations, or he wants to be told things in a more appropriate way, I can either, one, I can ask him how he wants to be told. Two, write him a letter or something, figure out how he wants to be told. Three, ask him if it's okay to tell him like, hey, I'm just going around to my teammates and I'm trying to offer feedback. I also am welcoming any feedback, but I was wondering if I could offer you some feedback. There you go. You know, just find out a way that they would want to receive the response. And you might even have to set up the preface of your feedback by saying, like, it might be offensive or it might be rude. Is that okay with you? And then, you know, just listen for that. And then you, like, really start figuring out how other people would want to be treated rather than treating them the way you would want to treat them. Because at the end of the day, the root of treating other people the way that you want to be treated is this concern of being courteous, respectful, and polite of another person. You know, it's being considerate of that person and their feelings. So if you treat others the way you would want to treat them, that's not really necessarily being considerate of their feelings. That's just more like being aware of your own feelings. You know, it's not, you have to put in the work to understand the other person. And that's one of the biggest components of this phrase and of this mentality, you know, this concept. It's that you really have to learn to listen and understand other people so you know how to treat them accordingly. And yeah, another great example I can think about is, which is a little funnier, a little cruder, is like the concept of spanking, right? Little kids, they hate spankings, right? You wouldn't want to spank a kid as a reward, right? But yeah, there's people, women, ladies. I mean, there are other people, you know, guys too, maybe, or others that like spankings as rewards, right? Because you know they might be a little kinky, they might be in that mood. Because to them, it's not a demonstration of, you know, discipline. It's not a punishment. It's a kind of like a reward for them, right? So yeah, you know, spanking bad for kids, spanking good for adults. But yeah, see, treat others how they would want to be treated if you were in their situation. Like me, I don't like being spanked, but if I'm dating a girl and she likes, you know, I'm spanking her. And you know me, I don't like people who are super anti-confrontational, you know, beat around the bush too much. But I also know that some people can handle like intense or high conflict situations or confrontational. I say high, but that's a bit of exaggeration. But you know what I mean. And it's just being aware of those things. And yeah, that's kind of it for today. Treat others how you would want to be treated if you were in that person's shoes, if you were in that person's situation, if you were that person. All right. And that takes a little bit of time and consideration to truly understand and follow, but just be patient, listen to others, and it'll come to you. All right. See ya.